The lack of security in all school systems not only places students in dangerous situations, but it's extremely infuriating. Teenagers are at risk every single day of their educational career due to the absence of protection the faculty presents them. Both private and public school buildings should contain metal detectors and include other methods of service to ensure all students are safe throughout the day. If precautions are not made, young students' lives are in jeopardy. School systems should hold this issue as extremely important, yet they do not focus on or direct any funding towards this issue. Most systems act as if everyone is pure-hearted, but the horrible truth is students can snap and tragedies happen. Faculties need to be more prepared for these situations. The lives of teenagers are very important and should be put first. Human dignity is an individual's sense of self-respect, integrity, and empowerment. Some believe this dignity is being violated due to the zero-tolerance policy schools use. Nadine Strawson states, what with intrusive random searches, snitch lines, seizures of private papers, drug-sniffing dogs, surveillance cameras, metal detectors, and mandatory uniforms and on-site police officers, the schoolhouse these days is looking more and more like a jailhouse. Although this policy may have its flaws, it is better to take precautions and secure student safety. Others believe this policy is a great way to prevent students from bringing in dangerous weapons to school. Kenneth Trump states, the sad reality is that nobody can offer 100% guarantee that a violent or serious security-related incident will not occur in their school. But you can and should be prepared to identify specific steps you have taken to reduce the risks of such an incident and to prepare for managing a crisis should one occur. Preventing a situation from happening by using the methods such as metal detectors and armed guards is the best way to secure a child's safety. Vincent L. Ferrandino, the executive director of NAESP, and Gerald N. Tiriozzi, executive director of NASSP, contend that while zero tolerance is not perfect, it remains the best solution to reducing school violence. They state, in 1994, school districts spent a great deal of time, effort, and funds on everything from conflict resolution programs to metal detectors. They also broadened their zero tolerance policies to include harassment, fighting, gang activity, toy weapons, any drugs, threats of violence, and hate offenses. When young students bring weapons to school for the purpose of wreaking havoc among others, they are violating natural law, new law, old law, and civil law. Natural law consists of the idea that every person is born with an awareness of good, evil, right, and wrong, which allows humans to live a life pleasing God. When students act violently towards others in a school area, they are ignoring human nature to acknowledge the evil of their act. The new law is the law of the gospel given by Jesus to challenge his people to follow his example. Young murderers violate the 3 of the 8 beatitudes given by Jesus. Blessed are the merciful, for they should obtain mercy. Blessed are the pure of heart, for they shall see God. Blessed are the peacemakers, for they shall be called children of God. The old law was God's revelation to his people, directing them to live in his image and his likeness. This law consists of the 10 commandments. School shooters violate the commandment, thou shalt not murder, by attacking the innocent with fatal methods. Civil law consists of any community that wishes to embody justice and goodness whose laws do not contradict the natural law. The act of murder is against the law all over the world, and in some areas punishable by death. Acts of violence such as school shootings are immoral acts considered to be a transgression against divine law. Moral objectivism is a system of ethics or morality which is universally valid. The school shooter's act of violence are unanimously known to be immoral. Despite the shooter's circumstance, they bring weapons of destruction to safe areas with the intent of mass harm. Their acts of aggression meet all the qualifications for a mortal sin. It is a grave matter, it is committed with full knowledge, and it is done with deliberate consent. In the Catholic Church, there are 2 types of sin: mortal sins, which imperil your soul, and venial sins, which are less serious breaches of God's law. The Church believes that when a human commits a mortal sin, they give up their opportunity to go to heaven due to their free will and actions. Dennis Teddy, an associate professor of government at Regent University's Northern Virginia District of Columbia Graduate Center, believes the 10 Commandments should be posted in all school buildings. He believes that the lack of religion in school systems is the reason for the extreme amount of violence. He states, the misguided ban on any recognition of religion in public schools has resulted in an immoral environment that breeds student violence. Allowing the Ten Commandments to be posted in schools could provoke a timely discussion between teachers and students on the value of self-discipline and moral rules. In 1980, the National Conference of Catholic Bishops, Pope John Paul II, and other European Catholic leaders made negative statements on the idea of capital punishment, which is the legally authorized killing of someone as punishment for their crime, although, in the Old Testament, the Mosaic Law calls for execution by stoning, burning, decapitation, or strangulation due to the acts of idolatry, magic, blasphemy, violation of the Sabbath, murder, adultery, bestiality, pederasty, and incest. It is stated, whoever sheds the blood of man, by man shall his blood be shed, and for God made man in his own image. Genesis 9:6. In the New Testament, Jesus refrains from using violence, although he does not deny that the state has the authority to exact capital punishment. This brings the question, should school shooters be sentenced to capital punishment? The school system should take precautions to prevent violent students from bringing weapons to school, so they do not have the option of harming others in the environment. Obtaining dangerous weapons is very easy for adolescents today. James D. Wright and Timothy Brezina state, guns are easy to obtain. For inner-city high school students, 65% believed they could get a gun with little to no trouble at all. Adolescents in this general population, guns are not difficult for youth to obtain. Mark E. Maines was a 22-year-old man who provided the Columbine school shooters with a semi-automatic handgun. The youth's easy access to weapons create a large threat in school systems. The lack of security in school systems create a possibility of hazardous events occurring. School shooters commit the vice of wrath, which consists of exerting extreme fury and rage upon others. The four virtues of justice, faith, hope, and charity are needed to remedy their injustices. The philosopher George A. Kendall, who received his M.A. in sociology from the University of Detroit, believes if religion is reinstated into schools, the violence will decrease. He states, all of these proposals fail to acknowledge that the true cause of violence is the exclusion of God from schools. This rejection of God has created a culture in which young people are encouraged to embrace chaos, violence, and death. The two organizations, Moms Demand Action for Gun Sense in America and Mayors Against Illegal Guns, state that from December 2012 to February 2014, there were 44 U.S. school shootings resulting in a fatal and non-fatal assaults, suicides, and unintentional shootings. They explain their statistics. These school shootings resulted in 28 deaths and 37 non-fatal gunshot injuries. 64% of the shootings took place at K-12 schools, and 36% took place on a college or university campus. Some examples of school violence taking place in systems with no security during the 14-month time period are as follows. On January 30th, 2014, at Eastern Florida State College in Palm Bay, Florida, a physical fight led to a 24-year-old student shooting the other in the chest. On August 23rd, 2013, at North Panola High School in Sardis, Mississippi, a 15-year-old was killed by a single gunshot to the chest after a fight broke out at a high school football game. On January 16th, 2013, at Chicago State University in Chicago, Illinois, a fight erupted which caused a 17-year-old high school student to be fatally shot. On a different occasion, on January 22nd, 2013, at Lone Star College in Houston, Texas, two young men bumped into each other in the doorway of an academic building, causing a fatal fight in which 10 shots were fired, wounding 3 people. On March 21st, 2013, at Davidson Middle School in Southgate, Michigan, a 13-year-old student committed suicide with a handgun owned by his family member. On January 14th, 2014, at Berendo Middle School in Roswell, New Mexico, a 12-year-old student opened fire, critically wounding 3 people. The lack of security in all school systems not only places students in dangerous situations, but it's extremely infuriating that nothing is being done to prevent problems from occurring. Teenagers are at risk every single day due to the absence of protection the faculty presents them. Both private and public school buildings need to contain metal detectors and provide other methods of service to ensure all students are safe throughout the day. Young students' lives are in jeopardy and actions need to be taken. School systems should hold this issue as extremely important, yet most do not focus on or direct any funding towards this issue. Not everyone is pure-hearted. The horrible truth is students can snap, causing tragedies to happen and lives to be lost. Faculties need to be more prepared for these situations. The lives of teenagers are very important and should be put first.